Hey guys, it's Lisa and welcome to my channel. If you're new to my channel, then I've been going through my store and revamping everything, and now I am in the Farmhouse kitchen area, and we redid some walls, and now I'm working on some small vignettes. Now, when I'm finished with this particular room, I will show that at the end of the video that I happen to be working on when I finish. And then we'll move on to another section in the store. So, at least for a couple weeks, my videos will be mostly farmhouse kitchen related items. And now I had this little basket, and I think a viewer once told me that these are what you would carry a Pyrex baking dish in when you're going to a dinner or something, and that would explain why there's some grease spots on it, I guess. So because of that, after I cleaned this up, I sprayed it really well with a clear satin finish, and I did that because I wanted to make sure that those little oil spots didn't try to come through. And I'm sorry I keep getting my head in the video, but I'm trying to be really careful and trim out around the edges, so and not get any on the actual wicker. So once I get 2 coats on this, I'm gonna put a transfer from the set Sunflower, and that's a Dixie Belle transfer. And also I'm going to use a little bit of script from the Dixie Belle set Vintage Post, and that's what this here is. But I'm trying to get my placement right. I want my flower to be offset. I don't want it in the center. So I'm going to put a little bit of the script to the side. And I'm keeping my handles on the side because although this is a little tray, I want it to be where you could use it as a shelf sitter, and you wouldn't have to have a plate rack or a plate stand to set it on. It would just kind of stand on its own, and if the handles were from top to bottom, then it wouldn't set right. So that's why I'm making that the top. But again, this could be used for a little tray. I just did it with just kind of setting it on a shelf in mind. So I'm kind of making sure that my transfers are a little higher up so that when it's setting, you'll see it better. Now, I went ahead, and it's actually a good idea to clear coat this before and after so that it doesn't try to remove any of your paint. But I felt pretty safe that my paint wasn't going to come off when I put the transfer on, and I did let it dry really well. So I'm just gonna clear coat this after. Now here, I want this to just kind of fade into the center. I don't want any sharp edges. So I'm taking some sandpaper and just kind of making that just kind of blend, just kind of fade into the darker print, if that makes sense. And then I'm going to put this flower just kind of to the side. As you can see, that works well. If I hadn't sanded that off, it may have shown too much behind it. So I'm working on a little shelf area. It's kind of like a bookshelf, and I just decorate each of the shelves differently. And this one is going to go on the top shelf, and it's going to have this sunflower theme. And because I only need to add a couple of items to that section, to that shelf actually, I'm going to go ahead and finish making the few items that I need to make for the rest of the bookshelf. And then it will all be decorated at the end of this video. But mostly what I'm putting in those shelves is just some things that I already had, and I'm just doing some little things to add into the vignette just for my color scheme. So again, it's just each shelf. I had planned on doing a video for each shelf, but there's just not enough that I'm doing to make that an entire video. So I will show that whole shelf area at the end of this video. So I mentioned in my last video that I started in one section in the store, and because I want to just revamp everything, I want to freshen up the whole store and give it a much different look. So I started with one area, and then now I've moved to the next section in the store. And I kind of have them set up as booths, although it's all me. I like to have different types of areas so that when they go into that area, the decor will be somewhat, it will be similar. And I just think it gives the store a better look. Now, as you can see, I'm just using different parts of a stencil now to add. So I love doing this because then you can make your item completely different than anything anyone else will see. And I'm just using some Stays On ink and a makeup brush here to stencil this on with ink. And I've said many times before that I just really like the layered look. And I was real happy with how this turned out. And again, I will be adding a clear finish to this. So that was the first item that I did for this particular vignette. And now I'm going to do a napkin holder. And these were very popular in the 80s and 90s, I think. But not so much anymore, and definitely not the look of this one. So I'm going to change this up. And although I do want some wood on this, I want the front part, the flat sides, to be white so that I can add some more of that sunflower transfer on. And I didn't tape this off. I usually don't tape off unless I have to. If I get any on this, then I'll clean it up. And I didn't sand this first. I'm going to change up this stain color, but I didn't sand that off first because I wanted the sanding, for one thing, to clean up the edges more, but also when this is not sanded and there's a clear finish on this like there is, it will be a lot easier to wipe off when I get a little on there. So I give this 2 coats on both sides of the color cotton and let it dry well. And then I took some sandpaper around the edges and I sanded off the clear finish so that it will accept my brown wax. And then I just took some Dixie Belle brown wax and went over the edges. But now, because I want to give this a similar look, I took another stencil. Actually, this is the same stencil, I think. And I just kind of lightly stenciled some of the area, or actually most of the area. But now I was careful here that when I did that I didn't let my stenciling get too dark. Because I just want it to be a background look. I just want it to be some layering, I guess, in the background, and I'm still gonna use some of that transfer on here. So this will just be kind of a light lettering in the back. So I did that on both sides and actually did a little different on both sides, and then added a transfer to both sides. And I love these French country stencils. I think that putting the transfer on is really pretty, but adding some layering in the background, I think, really takes it up a notch. Tammy and I have been so excited to just redo the whole store. It's just something that both of us enjoy so much, and just getting a whole fresh new look and getting to kind of start from scratch decorating, I think is just really fun. And I have to give my husband credit, because anything that we come up with that we want him to build, he will, if at all possible, he'll drop everything and do it. And I know that it's such a blessing to have someone like that you can rely on, because I couldn't do a lot of the things that I do if I didn't have him to do the build out first. So you wouldn't think here that this stencil would go well with this transfer, but you'll see when I put it on there that it just really makes such a difference. And I just made sure that when I placed it, I left some room, enough room for that to show. If I had centered it, it wouldn't have looked as well, but I had to cut some of the transfer off the bottom, but I think it worked really well on this. Now this is one of Dixie Belle's transfers that I really like. I don't know that sunflowers ever really go out of style. They're a really good fall and summer decor, and I just think that they'll always be popular to some extent. And see what a difference that faint stenciling in the background did for this. Now here I'm cleaning up those edges, and this is where I go around and just sand. When I realized how easily it was sanding off, then I just went around and sanded both sides and got all that off. And then again, I just put some brown wax on this. But before I added the brown wax, I put another stencil on the other side, and I'm going to offset this one also. These sunflowers make me think of how close we are to starting to work on some fall decor, because it won't be long at all. And when you're decorating, you have to think ahead, and when you have a store or a booth, you have to think way ahead, so that you not only have your things ready to go out, but you have them made first. And so you have to give yourself plenty of time. And we're going to be doing our Christmas open house again this year. And we had skipped it for actually 2 years, I think, maybe 3. But we had so much fun with it when we were doing it. And we're going to do it again this year. And by that time, we should be through the whole store having it redone. And I'm just excited about the open house this year. It's just an all-day thing. It's not the whole weekend. It's just a one Saturday thing. And I usually have it in late October, because if I don't have it that early, I have people complain. And we just do door prizes every hour, and we just have food, and my store is really busy at that time. It's just a fun day. We all enjoy it so much, and even my grandchildren love to come and help with the food. Now here I am adding that brown wax around the edges, and I just really love how this turned out. And again, I finished this off with a clear coat, and I just use a Rust-Oleum clear matte finish. I love how you can see that transfer, or that stencil through the transfer. I really like the look of that. Now here is the one shelf that I was decorating. Now I do these little boards. We put decoupage a napkin usually on a board and sand around the edges, and then put it in a little cellophane bag, and those sell really, really well for us. We've sold them for years, and they've just always been such a good seller, because I can sell them for just a few bucks, and I don't have any time in them, very little material at all in them. And it just gives them a good little gift idea. I do $3 to $4 depending on what I have on it, and they just sell so well for me. And it's just a great item to add into a vignette. And now this is some old recipes that my sister found a book of. And I'm not sure where they originally came from. We don't know this person who wrote them out, but it's just such a beautiful handwriting and so much aging to the page. But I do need to make it fit this, so I didn't want to cut it. And I'm going to have to add some of that beautiful natural aging back to this where I have to tear it off. But I've just taken a little fencing board here and cut a section from it. And then I didn't even stain this. I'm going to cover it with this recipe, and then I'll sand around the edges and antique around the edges. And that's all that I'm going to do to this, because the shelf that I'm going to be adding it to in that vignette, I have some cookbooks and things like that, and this will go perfectly. Now I'm decoupaging it on here. And I use either Mod Podge or regular school glue. And this one is probably going to be closer to 5. And the reason is because you can't duplicate this old paper. And again, her handwriting is just absolutely beautiful. And so this one I'll probably get 5 for. Now, it's a little harder to decoupage old paper because you want to get those wrinkles out, but you don't want to damage it. So you just kind of have to be careful and just kind of work from the center out. Now, I didn't mention that I make these little signs from, or shelf sitters, whatever you want to call them. I make them out of just whatever kind of wood I can get my hands on. And a lot of times you can go to construction sites, most of the time actually, and anything that they've thrown out in the yard, they'll give you permission to just pick it up. And a lot of times they're already cut in the sizes that you need, because I don't make these sizes exact. But this one here just happens to be a fencing board, and my husband cut it into little lengths like this. Again, we don't measure exactly. I do like for these to be in the right sizes for the cellophane bags that you buy at Walmart. And Walmart has 2 different sizes because most of the time I will package these in those little cellophane bags and then tie something around the top. And this size here, I would normally for this size get about $4, but I'm going to ask $5 for this because this is such an old recipe, and it's just something that you can't duplicate. But once I put this on here and I let it dry well, then I sand around the edges really well to smooth out the board. And then I use my antiquing ink around the edges of the board. And that's how I finish this off. And I forgot to antique around the edges where I tore this and tore off the original antiquing around the edges. And so I'm just taking my finger and adding it around. I'm trying to change fingers here so that I don't get this glue in my ink. And there it is in the basket in one of my vignettes. And there's actually cookbooks on that vignette. There to the right in the center. And so I felt like that recipe fit well into that vignette. Now, in my next video, I'm going to be doing some of the same things, but what I'm going to do is actually set the vignette up on camera for you to watch, because I think that people struggle more with setting vignettes up than probably anything else. So the more you can watch, the more you can learn, and the easier it will be for you to set your booth up, or even just little shelves in your home. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you in the next. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great evening, and God bless you and your family.